So we know that breast cancer is the most common sort of non-cutaneous malignancy, and is also the second most lethal form of cancer. And we know there are some significant disparities in terms of the sort of effects it has on different sort of racial and ethnic groups. And we know that sort of non-white, non-Caucasian women are much more likely to have sort of an aggressive subtype of breast cancer, such as triple negative breast cancer. And generally, we know that this is unfortunately leads to a sort of higher mortality rate in these sort of racial and ethnic groups. So what we were really interested in looking at was the sort of the breakdown of sort of racial diversity in breast cancer licensing trials by the FDA. And particularly in 2016, the FDA introduced specific criteria about how clinical trials should be reported. And what we were interested in looking at is the proportion of trials that are published. Do they actually use this framework to really report sort of breast cancer population that they've studied these drugs or therapies in? And generally, the journals also have their own sort of specific set of guidelines as well. So there's something called the International Committee of Journal for Medical Editors that specify that, again, they should list some information about the particular sort of racial and ethnic diversity that are in these clinical trials. And so those were really the sort of two sort of criteria that we particularly used when we were looking at sort of the drugs that have been approved by the FDA. And we wanted to look at a sort of broad window. So we looked for about sort of 15, 16 years, so from 2016 to sort of present day. And generally that was sort of the focus of our poster. Definitely, we want to try and increase the inclusion of Black participants in triple negative breast cancer particularly, as I think that's really been sort of quite disproportionately low compared to the burden of disease in this population group.